I recently went through a step-parenting rite of passage of sorts and had the phrase, "I don't have to listen to you, you're not my mom," yelled at me by one of my stepkids. Today I want to share a little bit about that experience, not because I think what I did is the correct or only way to handle the situation, but because I think as step-parents, it's very easy for us to feel alone, even though we share many of the same challenges. Welcome or welcome back to the Not So Wicked Stepmother. I'm Deanna, and I started this channel because step-parenting is hard. I want to be part of a conversation that puts the focus on the kids because blended family life is hard for them too. It can be beautiful and rewarding and wonderful, but it's not authentic to pretend we're all over here living the Brady Bunch. I don't often share personal stories, particularly things my stepkids say or do, because it's important to me to protect their privacy. That being said, this phrase, "you're not my mom," is such a common one for step-parents to hear that I think it's really good to talk about. There doesn't need to be shame around it for the step-parent who's hearing it or the kid who says it. So here's what happened. I will spare you the details of the setup because it's not really relevant, and again, it's important to me to protect their privacy. Suffice to say, my stepdaughter didn't want to do what she was being asked to do and yelled at me, "I don't want to listen to you and I don't have to, you're not my mom," and ran away. I have known for years that I would probably eventually hear these words from one or both of my stepkids. Even so, I cannot overstate how much it hurt. I was stunned, and I had to fight a few different impulses, and I want to share those with you because I do think it's fair to say that none of these would have been the best way to handle it in the moment. First, I was angry, and I wanted to say, "You can't talk to me like that." I wanted to follow after her, and I think it's valid to feel that way. It's valid to have an immediate reaction of, "That's unacceptable." I'll come back to why I don't think that that's the best way to handle it. The next impulse that I had was maybe even worse, to threaten, like, "If you don't come pick this up now, then we're not doing whatever we had planned later." Also, I don't think it was the right choice in the moment. The third impulse that I fought was actually to go in curious about what was wrong, which I also don't think would have been good. So I chose to give her space. She went to her room. I did go check on her, but she made it very clear she wanted to be left alone, so I respected that. I told my little guy she's having a hard time and needs some space. I put on a show for him and started to make dinner, but I felt like I'd been sucker punched. It hurt so much more than I could have imagined to hear those words. I remember before I was a parent, one of my best friends told me that when kids say hurtful things to you as an adult, you would think you'd be able to think, well, they're kids, they don't mean it. But sometimes it can really land as if it were your spouse or another loved one saying something like that to you. When my husband got home, she was still in her room, and I went in for a hug and told him, "I got my first 'you're not my mom,' to which he replied, 'Won't be the last.'" Not what I wanted to hear in that moment. But to be fair to him, he was trying to make a little joke, and it's reasonable for him to not want to start problem solving the minute he walks in the door. I just needed a hug, and we both knew that however we were going to resolve this, it didn't need to happen right then. We just needed to get through the evening. But I can see how easy it is for resentments to start to build in these situations. For the step-parent, we can feel like, "Hey, I need your help, you've got to have my back." And for the parent, they can feel like, "Why is it every time I walk in the door, there's a problem I need to solve?" So we got through the rest of the evening without addressing it at all. And some of you might be thinking, "You can't let her talk like that to you." But let me explain why I think my three impulses that I fought would not have gone well. The first one, to declare, "That's unacceptable, you can't talk to me that way." When someone's upset, I just don't think that that's valuable. I have never gone from not respecting to respecting someone because they demanded respect and said, "You must respect me." I just don't think that works. The next impulse was to essentially threaten a consequence or dangle a reward with an if-then statement. If you want this, then you need to do that, which I think would be equally ineffective and also had the potential to create more shame around the situation or reinforce to her that these words held a lot of power. I don't want her to think that these are words that she can use to hurt me. The truth is, I'm not her mom. The words themselves are not the problem, it's how they were said. The final impulse I fought was to try to have a heart-to-heart and get to the bottom of where this was coming from. Was she having a bad day? What was she really upset about? And I don't think this would have been a good idea either. Kids don't always want to open up, and they especially don't want to open up when they're already upset. It's just not the time to have that kind of conversation. It's a trap I've fallen into many times, and I am learning it's never a good idea. Here's how I did handle it. The next day, when the storm had passed and we were feeling connected, I brought it up. And I said, yesterday you said something when you were upset. We don't need to talk about it. It's totally normal to say things we might not mean when we're mad. But I do want to tell you something. I know I'm not your mom. I'm not trying to be your mom. I'm your stepmom, and I love being your stepmom. And just like other adults in your life, like your dad and teachers and babysitters, sometimes I'm in charge. So you do need to listen to me, and I will always listen to you. The whole time that I was telling her this, she had turned her body away from me and was clearly uncomfortable. Even so, it felt like the right thing to do to reassure her I'm not competing with her mom and we have our own relationship, while also gently reminding her I am an authority figure in her life. It did not feel like a sitcom moment. There were no hugs. I didn't come away feeling warm and fuzzy, but I do think where there had been rupture, there was repair. In summary, I think it's good to remember it's normal for kids to push back with their parents, and when it happens to us as step-parents, we can keep it in perspective and trust it does not define our whole relationship. Thank you for joining me. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you next week.